there's a professor here in California, Olga Perez Stable Cox. She made some admittedly controversial comments right after Donald Trump's election victory. And I'm going to get to those. I'm going to show you that in a second so you can make up your own mind. And then had an incredible reaction to those comments. But first, let me go to the Washington Post and give you some background on what's going on here. They say, for as long as she's taught, Cox, a professor at Orange Coast College in Costa Mesa, California, has prided herself on speaking freely. Then a clip of her calling Donald Trump's election an act of terrorism went viral earlier this month, unleashing a wave of violent threats that forced her to end her semester early and flee her home in suburban Orange County. Now that sounds a little extreme, but you're going to see why she did that in a second. First, let's give you her comments, which some students found to be comforting and some found to be outrageous. Here, let's watch.
Supremacist and a vice president that is one of the most anti-gay humans in this country. And so we are in for a difficult time, but again, I do believe that we can get past that. Our nation is divided. We have been assaulted. It's an act of terrorism. One of the most frightening things for me and most people in my life is that the people committing the assault are among us. It is not some stranger from some other country coming in and attacking our sense of what it means to be an American and the things that we stand for. And that makes it more painful because I'm sure that all of us have people in our families and our circle of friends that are a part of that movement, and it is very difficult. We are way beyond Republicans and Democrats, and we're really back to being a civil war. And I don't mean it in a fighting way, but our nation is divided as clearly as it was in Civil War times. And my hope is that we will get some good leadership to help us to overcome that.
Okay, now I think some of those comments were a little over the top. I don't know that I would call his victory an act of terrorism. No, I do know. I wouldn't call it that. So now, understand the context, though. So she's teaching a human sexuality class. Now, she does the first 20 minutes every day or every class on questions and answers submitted anonymously. Now, normally it's about sexuality, science, etc. They're her field. But in this case, it was turned to politics because of the election. And she said a lot of her students wanted to feel comforted because they were worried about what he might do because they were Muslim, they're gay, and some are undocumented. So those are among her students. Now, obviously, at least one of her students was conservative and felt that this was an affront to conservative voters. Well, to be fair, it was. Okay. Now, whether you should get triggered by that is another question, and whether you need a safe space is another question. But the local Republicans and the conservatives on campus felt that they absolutely needed a safe space from this kind of talk, so they demanded political correctness. Let me give you their demands here. The Orange Coast College Republicans have filed a formal complaint, wow, that is triggered, with the school and hired an attorney. Well, I thought that's what liberals did, said Sean Steele, a former chairman of the California Republican Party. So now, look, before we get on to what happened to the professor and what the really deplorable part of this story, I want you to understand that, kidding aside, it's not like I don't understand the conservative student's position. I was a conservative student when going to both undergrad and law school, and I often got into debates with my liberal professors. But what I didn't do was hide in a corner. I didn't file complaints. I didn't, file lawsuits or cry to mommy. I challenged the professors in class, and we would have a back and forth. Now, most of the liberal professors were wonderful people, and they acknowledged the points that I was making, and sometimes even acknowledged that I was right. And some not so much. There was one person in particular who was not very open-minded, told me to shut up in class. Well, then you go to the dean and go, well, I am paying tuition here, and I'm not sure that I should be told to shut up. And you hash it out in a regular way through, the procedures that you have. Now, I thought that's what conservatives were all about. But no, they love the spotlight. They love the publicity. So they immediately cry and say, no, I need political correctness. No one is allowed to, counter my opinion. Now, look, if she gave them a bad grade because they did not agree politically, that would be unacceptable. And you have every right in the world to follow procedure there and to take that up with the administration, or even to bring this tape up as a note of concern. Now, if you say she must not have political opinions, or she must have the same political opinions as me. That is literally political correctness, and the thing that I thought conservatives hated. Now, even if they complained and they just left it at that, that would have been the old days. That's fine. You know, it's a little melodramatic, but no big deal overall, okay? Now, turns out, of course, these are the new days, and they did not do that. Instead, we had raging hate against the professor, not just from students there, but from across the country. So let me explain that. The professor herself says, quote, "It doesn't feel good at all to be looking over my shoulder and wondering when an unfamiliar car pulls up across the street, whether they're going to take a picture of me or something worse. But that's my life now. I feel like I've been attacked by a mob of people all across the country." I think mob is fairly appropriate in this case. Now, if you think she's being melodramatic, come on now. Really, they're going to come after you, just a random professor in the middle of California here? But she makes a good point. She says, if they're telling me over and over again that they want to shoot me in the face, how am I supposed to know if they're going to do it or not? Now, look, some of us have been dealing with conservatives online for a long time. And so in this new age, there are no limits. And they will say anything. They will threaten you. The list goes on and on, all the things that they do. We're kind of used to it. It happens to us on a daily basis. But if you haven't dealt with it at all, and then you see things like Pizzagate, where a guy shows up with a weapon thinking that he's going to find a child sex ring because he's been all amped up on these fake news, insane conspiracy theories, and you think, what if somebody here shows up with a gun? They told me they were going to show up with a gun. What if they do the same thing here, but the guy in the pizza shop fired a shot apparently, but didn't hit anyone? But what if they hit me? So, look, if it was you, and all of a sudden there's these hundreds, maybe thousands of comments raining down on you with great vitriol, threatening you, might you be a little intimidated? And that's the problem here. We don't have brown shirts, we have red hats. And so these guys who make it their life's mission to intimidate people online. Now, things got worse when, of course, Fox News picked this up. So Cox said her ordeal continued after the controversial video appeared on the O'Reilly Factor. The host referred to her statements as gibberish and slander and labeled the professor as part of the totalitarian left. These guys, O'Reilly's kooky, right? But a lot of these conservatives are kooky. They think that there's some global conspiracy and the liberals want to take over your lives. No. Those are conservatives who want to get between you and your doctor and tell you what kind of sex you can have and what you should do after the sex and what you can do with your body and you can't. Liberals don't have some totalitarian mission to take over your life and run it. Bill O'Reilly, I don't give a damn about your life. I want to be as far away from your life as humanly possible. So just because you want to dominate our life doesn't mean we want to dominate yours. Let alone that if this global conspiracy existed, that somehow this random professor in the middle of Costa Mesa, California is involved in the totalitarian left. Oh, yeah. But people believe it. So here's what happens next. The video went viral, and within days, the beloved professor, who is largely unknown beyond the campus where she has taught for more than 2 decades, was under fierce attack. Her inbox and voicemail were filled with hundreds of threatening messages that referred to her as libtard, Marxist, nutcase, vile leftist filth, and a satanic cult member. Now, again, if you're like us and you live online, that's standard fare. I am both part of the Jewish conspiracy and a member of the Council of Zion, proudly reporting for duty. They'll probably clip that and go, I knew it, right? And apparently I'm also against the Jews because I don't agree with the right-wing government of Israel. Both things are true at the same time. Anna is both Armenian and a Jewess at the same time. And the list goes on and on and on. So we've dealt with this 1,000 times, and I'm this animal, and I'm that animal, and I'm this filth, and I'm that filth. Okay, but if you've never dealt with it, and all of a sudden you have this onslaught, and if they just left it at, oh, you're Marxist filth, okay, you say, all right, hey, okay. That's the internet, right? But no, of course they're not going to leave it there. So let me give you more. A guy who apparently identified himself, so okay, Javier Israel Matamoros says, keep your anti-white, man-hating, traditional values-bashing, Islamophile, radical views to yourself. Now, how he got that from 1 minute and 47, we showed you the most relevant minute there, but it's less than a 2-minute video. She didn't mention Muslims at all. Why is she man-hating? I don't know. But no, it doesn't matter. You're all these things that I can't stand. I'm going to put it onto you. Okay, we're not anywhere near done. He continues, you're an intolerant Marxist terrorist. You see, I like this. Let's pause here for a second. Because remember, they were outraged by her because she called the Trump victory an act of terrorism. They're like, oh yeah, I am so offended by that I'm going to call you a terrorist. A little bit of irony, but are we surprised that these guys missed the concept of irony? Anyway, he continues, you're an intolerant Marxist terrorist who causes division and bringing up your one-sided radical viewpoints and intimidating and shaming your non-conforming students. You are a sick, demented, evil bitch. Okay. Now, look, guys, there's a lot of crazy people in the world, right? And you egg them on, and then all of a sudden, you got people calling somebody a demented, evil bitch and saying that her conservative students, those poor kids, needed that safe space and they didn't have it. And now we're going to go to a guy who, it's the internet, you never know if it's really Jim Ernst, and there's probably 1,000 Jim Ernsts out there, so don't get worked up if you know a Jim Ernst. Anyway, it sends this message, go out in the middle of the football field, pull out a handgun, and put it to your temple and shoot yourself, or better yet, douse yourself in gasoline and set yourself on fire. Okay. Now, if you've heard that kind of crap for years and years, yeah, all right. That's like your opinion, man. If you're a person who's completely unfamiliar with it, and all of a sudden people are talking about shooting you in the face, and you've got this coming in nonstop, you're going to get freaked out. And you're going to think, are they coming to get me? And that's exactly what they want to do. They want to intimidate you. They want political correctness. Your opinion was not politically correct. It was the incorrect opinion, according to them. Hence, they will continue to harass you, intimidate you, and threaten you until they get you to stop. So she took the last week of classes off, went into hiding. She's going to come back next semester because she doesn't want to be intimidated into silence. But this is the sickness that's going on. Now, let's conclude here from the Washington Post. They say the harassment crested when Cox received an email from a man named Tim White that showed her home address, phone number, and salary, and threatened to spread the information everywhere. The email referred to Cox as a libtard Marxist, hate-monger nutcase. Maybe he was referring to himself. It was then Cox said that she could no longer stand to be in her home and decided to flee. This is dangerous stuff, man. And if you threaten to put people's home address online, there are laws against that. You threaten to do bodily harm to them, there are laws against that. And yes, they also apply on the internet. So the police should be very careful in pursuing anyone who does credible threats of violence. You want to call someone a Marxist, have at it, Hoss. Go nuts. You want to call them dirty, you want to call them this, you want to call them that, you want to call them different colors, have at it, right? That's just like your opinion. Okay, but when you get to threats and talking about people's homes and putting out addresses, that's actionable. And so the police need to take action before this stuff gets out of control. Now, get a load of this. They even have lists already. Her name has been added to a controversial website called Professor Watch List, which lists the names of about 200 academics across the country accused by a conservative group of advancing, quote, leftist propaganda and discriminating against conservative students. Well, this is how things start. Intimidation, list of people who are politically incorrect, and then every once in a while somebody shows up at your pizza shop with a gun. So we've got to nip this in the bud. And I don't mean their part of the conversation. So obviously we don't mean their vote. They won the presidential election. God help us all, right? And certainly not their speech. But if they are taking action, and threats are action, the police need to get on top of this because this could get out of hand real quick. It's already out of hand. It's already having an effect. It's causing professors to worry about their lives. And you can't have that. So we've got to find some sort of answer to this. I'm not talking about an overreaction. In the Trump era, we're not going to have to worry about that. If there's going to be an overreaction, it's going to be against her, not against the people intimidating her. How much will Trump want to use these kind of tactics to drive his opponents to fear and to flee? We don't know yet. It's just begun, but he has never discouraged these guys. All he's ever done is egg them on and egg them on. Finally, Cox does say she's going to come back. She says, my parents left Cuba so we would not have this kind of harassment, and so we would have access to free education. They made sacrifices to bring us here, and I'm proud to be an American. So as an American, she's going to stand strong, come back to class next semester. We wish her well, and whether you agreed or disagreed with her comments, which is perfectly understandable, this is not what anyone should have to deal with in the United States of America. Get the full 2-hour show ad-free. Become a member, tytnetwork.com/join.